Hey folks, Changing Reason here. Today we're going to talk about the Orlando nightclub shooting. There are already hundreds of videos on YouTube discussing the questionable nature of this event, so I want to address some specific items: the two bathrooms, the hostages trapped within, and the final moments of the standoff. First, let's get a brief lay of the land. This is the Pulse nightclub, located at 1912 South Orange Avenue in Orlando, Florida. And virtually all of the exterior footage we've seen from that night takes place between these two cross streets: Harding Street to the south and Cayley Street to the north. Now, before we take a closer look at the club's interior, let's watch this brief animation created by USA Today. Pretty straightforward, right? Omar Mateen enters through a side entrance and opens fire, killing dozens of patrons. Several customers seek refuge in the bathrooms located at the rear of the building. A firefight ensues between Mateen and a security guard, who's an off-duty police officer, who is later joined by additional responding officers. Mateen flees to one of the restrooms, turning this into a hostage situation which ends up lasting 3 hours, until police, using explosives and an armored vehicle, break through the club's rear wall, freeing the hostages and ultimately killing Mateen after a brief final exchange of gunfire. Okay, here's the actual floor plan of the club. Here's the main entrance, and here's the entrance used by Mateen. And here are the remaining exits. Here are the two bathrooms where so many patrons sought shelter. Now, to observant viewers, a question should immediately arise at this point. Why trap yourself in a bathroom when there are two perfectly good exits, here and here? Anyone fleeing the main dance floor, which is where the majority of the customers would have been and where the shooting started, would literally pass right by one of these two exits on their way to the bathroom doors, located here. And anyone already within this back area, the lounge, would have had more than enough time to get outside. Now, there were some early reports that one of the exit doors was either blocked or otherwise inoperable. This has turned out to not be the case. The door in question is this one. However, this is not a public door and not intended as an exit. The club has 6 other exit doors, more than enough, according to code, to accommodate the club's 300-person capacity. There is no evidence that any of these 6 doors were blocked the night of the attack. Anyway, moving on. From what I've read so far, the reporting is very vague with respect to which bathroom, the men's or the women's, the various reported events occurred. So let's get this straightened out. In this article, a man named Orlando tells the New York Times that he and a female friend took cover in a bathroom stall, quote, contorting their bodies on top of the toilet so their feet could not be seen, end quote. Orlando relates how, quote, the gunman burst into the bathroom, went straight to the stall next to them, and shot the people inside, end quote. So what can we gather so far from this account? Well, we know that he was in a bathroom with 2 stalls. And from this floor plan, we can clearly see that only one bathroom has 2 stalls, the women's room. Now, let's take a look at Patience Carter's account. As it turns out, she was also in the bathroom with 2 stalls.
We got trapped in there. So we saw Tierra, but everybody was rushing into the bathroom stall. Everyone was rushing into the bathroom stall. The gunshots were still going off rapidly, and it's still not real to me yet. It's still not real to me. I'm just like, why are they doing all of this? And I was even Snapchatting in the bathroom stall. Once we got in there, we ran into the bathroom. Me, Tierra, and Akira were like actually the last ones to actually get into the bathroom stall, the handicap one, the biggest one. So the gunman had stopped shooting for a while. I don't know where he went, but I was lying in the bathroom floor. I was right underneath the stall wall, so the stall wall was like right above my face because I was trying to get most of my body into the second stall because there was like a lot of people and my leg was injured at the time. Like I got shot in my leg and it was actually pinned under the person who was laying right next to me.
As further confirmation that Orlando and Patience were indeed in the same bathroom, both reference Martine's 911 call, and both reference his query regarding the presence of any black people in the bathroom.
But throughout that period of hours, the gunman was in there with us, and he actually made a call to 911 from in there. Everybody could hear who was in the bathroom who survived, could hear him talking to 911, saying that the reason why he's doing this is because he wants America to stop bombing his country. And from that conversation from 911, he pledged his allegiance to ISIS, and he started speaking, and I believe after he got off the phone with 911, he started speaking in Arabic. And after that, he even spoke to us directly in the bathroom. He said, "Are there any black people in here?" I was too afraid to answer, but there was an African-American male in the stall where most of my body was, majority of my body was, had answered. And he said, yes, there are about 6 or 7 of us. And the gunman responded back to him saying that, you know, I don't have a problem with black people. This is about my country. You guys suffered enough. And he made a statement saying that it wasn't about black people. This isn't the reason why.
Both also discuss the final moments of the standoff when police managed to break through the exterior block wall. But we'll come back to that shortly. Let's take a brief look at the accounts of 3 other survivors who've received quite a bit of media attention. Angel Santiago Jr., Norman Cassiano, and Miguel Leyva. Here's Angel.
And right around 2 o'clock, they stopped. Right around when they stopped serving alcohol, that's when we heard the first round of shots go off. So immediately, my friend and I fell to the ground to take cover. My initial thoughts were maybe there was an altercation. It was personal, so stay to the ground until it's over. But then we heard additional rounds going off. So at that point, my friend and I ran to the bathroom in the rear. There was a bathroom on the left and the right. The bathroom on the left had a large handicap stall, which we knew about, so we ran in there. And when we arrived, there were already people hiding in the handicap stall. So we continued to hear gunfire. We dropped to the ground in the handicap stall. And my thought process was, do we stay here and wait for the shooter to come back, or do we try to leave? So I tried maneuvering so I can exit underneath the stall, but then people, they were like, no, stay here, don't go anywhere because you'll get killed. So I stayed there for a little while longer, but everything just kind of quieted down, and all I heard was police chatter on the radio from the distance. I didn't hear any more gunfire. So at that point, I decided to, little by little, drag myself underneath the stall to exit the handicap stall where we were. Once I got out of there, I saw that there was a body in front of the door on the opposite side. I didn't see anyone else around, so I couldn't walk, so I had to drag myself out of the bathroom toward the bar area where I was initially, and until I actually saw the face of a police officer. So when I finally saw an officer, I had my cell phone in my hand and I started waving the light so that he can see me. And at that point, the officers instructed me, lift my hands, drop whatever I had in my hands, and they instructed me to drag myself toward them. I yelled, I said, there are people shot, people who were killed in the bathroom, we need your help. But they weren't coming near me. They just told me to drag myself toward them. So once I got, close enough, a couple of the SWAT grabbed me by the arms and dragged me outside.
Note that he says he went into the bathroom on the left. That would be this one, the men's room, with its single stall. And here's Norman.
So as I'm waiting, that's when you hear the first two gunshots. And they were so loud that you definitely could separate it from what was music and what was a gunshot. At that moment in time, I just automatically dropped to the floor. Everyone kind of did the same thing. They all just dropped to the floor and were like, holy moly, this is really happening. At that moment in time, I couldn't think that it was as grand as it was going to turn out to be. I thought it was just a regular beef between two club patrons or something. So we're still kneeling down thinking that it's going to stop, and then we hear 5 or 8 gunshots more, and we do a military crawl over to the bathroom, and we hide inside of a stall. Inside the stall there was about already 20 people, and then 10 more came with us. The stall was so packed that you literally had no place to just personally stand by yourself. Everyone was crunched on top of each other, just huddling, basically just huddling and fearing their life. On the opposite side, and I could hear the cops now. They weren't in our area yet, but I could hear them, and I started telling them, guys, there's police here, let's get out, we can make it. And everyone's like, no, you're crazy. There was people that were genuinely mad at me for even speaking and being loud. And I literally looked at everyone. I was the only person standing up, and I looked at them and I said, if we do not leave here, we're all gonna die. And everyone was like, if you go out there, you're gonna die. And that's when adrenaline just shot through my body. I had both sides shot, and I honestly didn't feel it anymore. Just having to escape the way I did is still traumatizing. It's all traumatizing, and I hear someone yelling my name in the stall. They're like, Norman, Norman, Norman. And I'm like, I'm fine, let's go. And even then, no one reacted. So I poked my head out really quick, because at that point I could see flashlights. I guess they thought he was still in that area, because it was dark. They never got to turn the lights on. None of that ever got to happen. So I poked my head out, and the police actually shot at me with an AR-15, an actual rifle. And I might be the fact that I was going through it, or I might not be exaggerating, but I heard it and felt it, and it hit the wall, and the debris hit, and I went back in, and that just made me lose it. I started crying and yelling, I'm a victim, please, I'm hurt, I'm injured, I've been shot twice. And that's when you heard the cop kind of tone it down, and he shined the light, and he's like, if you're a victim, come out with your hands in the air and hurry, because the guy's still in the building. I put my hands out like this, and I'm just waving them, and I come out, and he's like, hurry, hurry, hurry. They all grab me, and we start walking. We run out the exit.
Okay, before we discuss anything else, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge how remarkably similar these two stories are. First, both Angel and Norman make a point of saying that at first they thought it was some sort of dispute between club patrons. Second, both Angel and Norman's accounts have them being the only ones in the stall willing to attempt an escape. Yet, neither of them references the other in their respective testimonies. And finally, both of them experienced an initially tense moment with police upon exiting the bathroom. Confirming that Angel and Norman were in the same bathroom, both of their accounts reference a man who was killed just outside of the door of the stall.
So at that point, I decided to, little by little, drag myself underneath the stall to exit the handicap stall where we were. Once I got out of there, I saw that there was a body in front of the door on the opposite side. I didn't see anyone else around.
So at that moment in time, a young man is stumbling into the bathroom. We think it's the assailant, and we see that it's not because he slammed into the door and just drops. And he's trying to get into the stall, but it's so packed that we couldn't open the door. And I'm trying to pull him from underneath, and he was in too much pain. And the people inside the stall, and I just hear one solid gunshot, and you see the boy just completely, you saw the life just leave him.
Now, I'd like to point out here that Norman claims he could not open the stall door because there were too many people inside. However, according to the floor plan at least, the stall door swings outward, which is typical for an ADA bathroom stall. Anyway, here we have Miguel. He's known for the cell phone video he took while trapped in a bathroom stall.
The shooter just started saying, everybody come out, everybody's gonna die. Shooting, and we could just hear him laughing. It was like the devilish laugh, and he was just walking around just shooting people randomly.
Miguel Leyva can't get that sound out of his head.
And he locked the stall, and there was a couple of people that got locked out, and they were just begging for their lives, and he just killed them right there too.
While he also does not specify which restroom he was in, he makes a point of mentioning the shooter's laugh. Norman also references the shooter laughing after killing the man on the floor.
All I heard was a laugh when he shot the boy before he shot the stall. He laughed like an evil laugh, like something that's just going to be imprinted in my head forever. I can go to sleep, close my eyes, and that's literally the first thing I can hear is bullets hitting the floor, the gun being reloaded, and that laugh. A laugh of ha, I did it. I'm getting rid of all of you.
Neither Patience Carter nor Orlando make any mention of Mateen laughing. And, like Angel and Norman, Miguel makes no reference to a second stall. But unlike Angel and Norman, Miguel was still in the bathroom when the police broke through the wall. And this is where things get really interesting. Let's listen.
Miguel says someone else in the bathroom, connected to 911, was put on the line with a negotiator.
You're gonna hear a detonation, just lay low. So everybody just stayed down, and we heard the first explosion. And the gunman came from behind and came into the bathroom and started shooting at the SWAT team through the hole they had just made. And that's when I got shot in my shin.
Okay, from this, it sounds like Miguel, whom we've determined was in the men's room, witnessed the police break through the wall and exchange gunfire with Omar Mateen. Now, just how he witnessed anything from within the closed and locked stall is difficult to reconcile, but we'll have to let this slide for now. The point is, according to Miguel, the final confrontation with police occurred in his immediate vicinity.
The gunman came from behind and came into the bathroom and started shooting at the SWAT team through the hole they had just made. And that's when I got shot in my shin.
Clearly, Miguel is claiming that Mateen was in the bathroom as he fired on police. According to this New York Daily News article, quote, "The sudden siege sent Mateen into the bathroom, spraying bullets in his final moments. He killed several more people and wounded Leyva with 2 gunshots, with one hitting him in the shin. When it was over, the officers slowly helped the hostages out," Leyva said, "and they had to step over dead bodies," end quote. It's important to note here that according to this rendition of events, Mateen killed several people in the men's room in the final moments of the standoff. Now, here's Miguel again, with an entirely different account.
Miguel escaped through one of the holes ripped in the building while helping a SWAT team member carry a victim.
So I'm like, let me try to hop out. And the SWAT member was like, we don't have time for that. So he pulled me out by my arms and drugged me out because they're trying to search everybody. They don't know who the shooter is. And I'm like, this guy is still alive, man. We've been trying to keep him alive the whole time. So the SWAT guy goes, grab his leg, grab his leg. So I grab his leg and his arm and we're running. As we're running to the Tire Kingdom parking lot, that's when the guy came out, I guess after the last person came out, and he started shooting into outside through the opening to the SWAT. And that's when I got shot in my leg as we were carrying him out.
We can gather from this tremendously amended version of Miguel's story that after police breached the wall, they had time to evacuate all of the surviving hostages from the men's room before engaging Mateen in any way. And Miguel didn't suffer his gunshot wound to the leg until after he was already well outside the club, as he was helping a SWAT member carry another victim, a victim whom Miguel claims to have been aiding throughout his time in the bathroom. And here's another detail of Miguel's revised account that struck me as peculiar.
So I grab his leg and his arm and we're running. As we're running to the Tire Kingdom parking lot, that's when the guy came out, I guess after the last person came out, and he started shooting into outside.
So, Miguel, who was shot in the shin, and the SWAT member were carrying a horribly wounded victim toward the Tire Kingdom parking lot. One would assume, then, that Tire Kingdom must be relatively nearby, across the street perhaps. But this is not the case. Here is Pulse Nightclub. And here is Tire Kingdom, more than a block away, roughly 450 feet. The police were dragging or carrying critically injured gunshot victims to a location 1.5 football fields away? Maybe this is normal. Or perhaps Miguel should have said Dunkin' Donuts, which is 1 block to the north of Tire Kingdom, just across the street from Pulse. Now, let's listen to what Patience Carter has to say about the final moments of the standoff.
The last shots that went off that he did inside the bathroom while we were held hostage was right before the police bust through our bathroom that we were inside of. So there were like 3 explosive sounds that went off right before the police actually rescued us from inside the bathroom. Right before the wall, like right before the SWAT or the PD bust through the wall, he actually started backing into the bathroom stall itself that myself, Tierra Parker, and Akira, who didn't make it, was inside of. And I could see his feet like scooting back as he heard the police outside. And the last thing that I heard before the police said, move away from the walls, because obviously they were about to bust through again, he said, "Hey, you." to someone on the floor inside the bathroom and shot them, shot another person, and then shot another person who happened to be directly behind me, who I'm told through the eyes of Tierra that shielded me with their own body to make sure that I wasn't hit. So after he rang off those last 3 shots, hey you, bow, 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 they bust through the wall and they started engaging in gunfire after they told him, put your weapon down, put your weapon down. He didn't, so they engaged in gunfire. They got him, they shot him dead.
All right, we have a lot to dissect here. First, to reiterate, based on her account, Patience was in the restroom with 2 stalls, the women's room. It seems very clear, to me at least, that Patience is claiming that the final shootout with police took place within the women's restroom. But am I inferring too much? Let's listen again carefully.
The last shots that went off that he did inside the bathroom while we were held hostage was right before the police bust through our bathroom that we were inside of. So there were like 3 explosive sounds that went off right before the police actually rescued us from inside the bathroom.
In this clip, she clearly states that police, quote, busted through our bathroom that we were inside of, end quote. She also notes here that she heard 3, quote, explosive sounds right before police broke through the wall and rescued them.
Right before the wall, like right before the SWAT or the PD bust through the wall, he actually started backing into the bathroom stall itself that myself, Tierra Parker, and Akira, who didn't make it, was inside of. And I could see his feet like scooting back as he heard the police outside. And the last thing that I heard before the police said, move away from the walls, because obviously they were about to bust through again. He said, hey you, to someone on the floor inside the bathroom and shot them, shot another person, and then shot another person who happened to be directly behind me, who I'm told through the eyes of Tierra that shielded me with their own body to make sure that I wasn't hit.
Here, she explains that right before the police broke through the wall, the gunman backed himself into the stall itself. And once inside the stall, he shot and killed 3 people, including a woman who apparently shielded Patience. Just how Mateen managed to back himself into a locked bathroom stall full of people is unclear. But we'll just have to accept that it happened, at least for the sake of this discussion.
So after he rang off those last 3 shots, hey you, bow, 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 they bust through the wall and they started engaging in gunfire after they told him, put your weapon down, put your weapon down. He didn't, so they engaged in gunfire. They got him, they shot him dead.
I'll just quote Patience. Quote, after he rang off those last 3 shots, hey you, bow, 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 they bust through the wall and start engaging in gunfire after they told him, put your weapon down, put your weapon down. He didn't, so they engaged in gunfire. They got him. They shot him dead. End quote. While Patience does not explicitly say, I saw Mateen exchange gunfire with police, or I saw the police kill the gunman, any reasonable listener would gather that she did, in fact, witness these events, somehow, from within the women's room stall where she had been hiding the whole time. The gunman made his way into her stall and shot and killed 3 people just moments before police broke through the wall, which is when the final shootout occurred. She does not indicate in any way, shape, or form that after killing 3 people, the gunman left her bathroom or even left the stall. We simply have gunman enters stall, bow, 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 3 people dead, police break through the wall, gunfire ensues, gunman dead. Patience does not say or imply anything other than that these events happened within a very short period of time and happened in her immediate vicinity. I'd like to take a brief moment to go off topic a bit. Let's listen to a little bit more of this story.
Sit up and pull my leg from underneath the person who just was killed beside me. And I was asking Tiara Parker, I said, Tiara, are you shot? And she said, yeah, she got shot in her side. I said, what's wrong with Kiara? What's wrong with Kiara? Kiara was laying over Tiara's lap, lifeless, but according to the African-American male who was luckily unharmed, who was not shot at all, he checked Kiara's pulse at the time and said that she still had the pulse, she's still breathing. So that was the last thing Tiara basically said to me, like, she's breathing, she's breathing.
Her departed friend's name is Akira Murray. Akira. Yet, it seems that Patience has suddenly forgotten her name, as she repeatedly mispronounces it, saying Kiara instead. Listen again.
What's wrong with Kiara? What's wrong with Kiara? Kiara was laying over Tiara's lap, lifeless, but according to the African-American male who was luckily unharmed, who was not shot at all, he checked Kiara's pulse at the time and said,
regardless of how traumatized you are, butchering your friend's first name is not an easy mistake to explain away. Some may argue that Kiara is perhaps a nickname for Akira. This, of course, is ridiculous. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this mispronunciation, Kiara, is quite similar to the name of Patience's other friend, Tiara. It appears to me that while reciting her story, Patience inadvertently transposed these two names. I find it difficult to believe that this sort of mistake could happen if she were recalling a true event that involved two actual friends. Now, let's take a look at what Orlando, who was also in the women's room, had to say about this final raid by police. He explains that near the end of the siege, Mateen began to shoot hostages in the bathroom. This seems to jibe with Patience Carter's account. One of these victims crawled into Orlando's stall, grabbed his and his female friend's legs, and pulled the two of them off the toilet on which they had been uncomfortably perched, and onto the floor. Recall that Patience Carter claims to have been in the adjacent stall, positioned beneath the partition between the two stalls. Presumably then, this victim crawled over Patience in order to enter Orlando's stall. To be fair, this New York Times article becomes aggravatingly vague here with respect to Orlando's account of the final few moments leading up to Mateen's confrontation with police. We are told Orlando could hear the gunman loading his weapon as the final battle with police began. And at some point afterward, there were, quote, explosions and chaos, and a hole was blown in the bathroom wall, through which he and his female friend were eventually evacuated. Oddly, this article notes that Orlando, at least at the time of his interview, did not know if anyone else made it out of that bathroom alive. But this makes no sense. We are told there were several other survivors in the bathroom with Orlando, including Patience Carter, who would have been mere inches below his feet for the previous 3 hours and literally right next to him in the final moments of the standoff. And by all accounts, multiple people were evacuated through the holes in the bathroom wall and dragged or carried to safety by SWAT officers. How on earth would Orlando, who was not injured at all, not know if anyone else survived? It's just not believable. On a related note, I find it interesting that in their respective accounts, Patience and Orlando make no reference whatsoever to each other's presence. It seems that over the course of 3 hours in such a confined space, you'd become intimately familiar with those near you. We have now arrived at our next question. If Patience Carter and her stall neighbor Orlando were in the women's room, and Miguel Leyva was in the men's room, how were they all witnesses to, or at least within the immediate vicinity of, the wall breach and final shootout with the gunman? We'll examine this question and more in Part 2.